Hey there, this is Molly and welcome to another astrology teaching video. And I'm going to talk to you about what it means energetically when a transiting planet moves from the 12th house across the ascendant into the first house. This is important to be aware of in your natal astrology chart because it signals a completion. The 12th house is completion, release. It's karma, it's what's unconscious. It's a place of looking at the full cycle of energies that have come around. And in the 12th house, it's the ending of this energy, of this cycle. It is where you look at what you've learned. There's review. There is looking at where you've come. If you were to look at your chart in reverse, you could get more energies. It was like the hindsight version of what you've been through is what comes up in the 12th house. You understand what you learned, how you grew, what needed to be healed, what the challenges were. So the 12th house is hindsight of what this full cycle was about. And it's meant to be where you release, you transmute, you dissolve and let go. And it can be painful. There can be grief with the 12th house when a transiting planet is in the 12th house because you're meant to look at how all energies change. And the 12th house is, are you ready to let go? It does depend on the energies that you have in the 12th house, but this is the intention of the 12th house here are these themes. When a transiting planet is in the 12th house, it is showing you that it's a quieter time. It's a time of receptivity, of listening, of understanding what you were going through, what you were learning, what you were meant to understand and complete. Because what we don't complete is where we have karma. Karma is simply unfinished energy. Karma is not good or bad. It is simply unfinished energies that we are resolving, we are releasing, we are finalizing, and that's part of the 12th house here. So a 12th house transiting planet is asking you to go into these themes, the 12th house themes. And planets move at different speeds. So let's use the sun as an example because the sun moves around your full chart in a year. And so whenever the sun, the transiting sun, mind you, this is all about transiting planets, not your natal planets. The transiting sun is in your 12th house. It is completing the cycle that started in the previous 11 months. And so you're looking at, well, what do I need to listen, complete, release? It's an inner time, reflective, and it's also unconscious, meaning there's things about the 12th house that we don't always know yet. We feel it, we intuit it, we get that sense that I'm understanding this more, I'm learning, I'm healing. And so the 12th house holds our unconscious energies. And the sun in the 12th house is a time of endings and completions. It's not a good time to begin or initiate because what happens is the sun will then burst through across your ascendant, whatever your ascendant degree is. And when it does that, it's a new start. The transition between the 12th house and the first house for a planet is a cycle of endings, completions, and new beginnings and a fresh start. Because the first house is your sense of self. It is subjective. It is a new cycle. It relates to the body. And this is where you have that fresh surge of energy to begin new. So when you know what your ascendant or rising sign is and the exact degree and astrological sign of it, then you can see when the sun is going to be crossing over your ascendant every year. It'll be within the same few days every year. That will show you when you're ready to begin and initiate a whole new cycle of energies. And so the transition from the 12th house to the first house is where something was unconscious, you were learning, you were ending it, you were completing it, and now you have a renewal, a fresh start, a new beginning. So this is where timing is beneficial. And whenever I see see a client with something in their 12th house, I say, it's actually a quieter time right now to not start just yet. Wait until that planet goes across your ascendant, and then you'll feel it in your body. That is the first house, that is the ascendant, but you'll feel it within you at a powerful level, because the first house is where we begin new energies and we claim something for ourselves. We claim it and embrace it and say, this is me, this is what I'm about, and it can feel easier. It often feels smoother when the planet moves from the 12th house into the first house. And because this was the house of what is unconscious or in your psyche, then you start something new here in the first house, and you can see what that 12th house unconsciousness was. So this is an opportunity to raise your own consciousness about what you were healing and completing and seeing. Again, the first house can also offer you the gifts of hindsight when that planet moves into the first house. Now, the ascendant or rising sign is an important axis in the chart. It's right there, that line. And in a previous video, I shared with you what the 4 quadrants of a chart mean. And the first house is very important because of how it activates this quadrant here of the first, second, and third houses. That's new sense of self. A new cycle begins, a new beginning point. This is truly empowerment. This is when you are meant to be subjective and in your own energy, to understand, who am I now? And you're meant to be in that space. You really are, because it is the foundational energy that begins this whole new cycle. And with the sun, it takes a full year. Okay, it takes a full year, of course, for the sun to go all around your chart. So this is different than your birthday. This is just a good day to know is what day or what few days every year does the sun go over your ascendant, because this is a rebirthing energy and it can feel quite exciting and quite empowering for you. So I like to call that out so that you know what to look for in your chart. The other thing to be aware of is that the first house begins this new self-identity, this new sense of, this is what I'm about, this is what matters to me, this is how I think. So you want to know when this new cycle begins, because then you'll be more aware of what happens in your life, what shows up during this time when energies are in your first house, and is it truly you? Does it connect? Does it belong? Now, some transiting planets take much longer to move between the 12th and the first house. Pluto is the slowest, followed by Neptune, Uranus, Chiron, Saturn, all slow-moving planets. And so whenever they cross this axis in your chart, this point, that's very significant in your life. That is a life change at some level. When the slower moving outer planets cross over your ascendant, you are made new. Something is changing in your body, in your sense of self, in a whole new cycle. And when I see that in a client's chart, I know this is a very significant time for them. Take, for example, transiting Saturn. I just had this actually last December. Transiting Saturn went over my ascendant, and I knew, okay, it's a whole new 29-year cycle that's beginning. So because the slower moving planets take longer to move around your chart, they're much more significant when they go across your ascendant. That's a very important thing to be aware of, because that's going to show you where the big life changes are happening in your life. The same is true for, of course, Pluto. It transforms your self-identity. Neptune, which will dissolve and have you surrender your self-identity. Uranus will shake up your self-identity. Chiron will ask you to look at what needs to heal in your self-identity. And Saturn will solidify it. So these are just general understandings of the energies. But I want you to be aware of when a transiting planet moves from the 12th house to the first house, a whole new cycle begins. This is very significant in your chart, and you'll want to know that day when the sun makes this transit every year, and you might find some wonderful synchronicities that show up and support your new sense of self at that time during the year. So I hope this has given you some good things to think about when a transiting planet moves from the 12th house to the 1st house. I'll be doing another video for you soon that will be about when a planet moves from the 3rd house to the 4th house. So I hope to see you in that video soon.